And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And in the studio with me, I am pleased to introduce or to welcome back. You've been on our program before, haven't you?
Yeah.
Just not here in the studio.
Not here in the studio.
Yeah. So Mimi Kennedy, the activist, the actress, or actor. What's the proper term?
The actor. I say Well, I do say actress sometimes because I play female roles mostly.
Yeah. I don't know where that word, how that word
me
is
neither. There was a
evolving
big switch.
days.
We all have to be actors, but actress is kind of the historic term.
Okay. So anyway, and you're brilliant at it.
Thank you.
And the new show that you're in is Mom.
Yeah, Mom. Having a good time with Allison Janney and Anna Faris on the network, on a big network.
Doing the TV show. That is spectacular. So, Mimi, you're on the board of
Progressive
PDA.
Democrats of America. Yeah, we had our round table yesterday. Thought it was going to be about labor. It was a little bit about labor, but it was mostly about war and peace. Really interesting vote yesterday that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
We were looking at our PDA board, and Jim McGovern visited us at the round table, and he said, I'm really glad to be among friends. I need to know you have my back for the vote that I'm about to vote. Because, of course, the sense was that the Democratic president should have the power he needs, just the way the Republican president sees it, to have war all the time. But, of course, he did not. He said, this may be the only vote we get on this war. And he's old enough to remember Vietnam. He voted no. Some of our champions, Keith Ellison, voted yes, but then again, Syria. He was going to give the president, because I think of his district. There were unbelievable amounts of populist Republicans who voted no, and therein lies the common ground that we begin to see. Strange bedfellows indeed. There's a guy named Dana Rohrabacher was on C-SPAN this early morning. I was listening on my radio C-SPAN, talking about why he didn't want a war. And I'm telling you,
whoa.
I was like, are you using our talking points, Mr. Rohrabacher?
Shades of 1943.
Because he didn't used to be like that, but I know he's got young kids. He had twins later in life. I happen to know this because I once, Walter Jones, another anti-war Republican, was talking with Mr. Rohrabacher outside Capitol Hill while I was with Conyers' staff. And I heard them talking about kids and so forth. It was all very paternal and familial. But now, it must be 7 years after that conversation, Dana Rohrabacher doesn't seem to want to send young people to war. James McGovern,
he's also secure.
A wonderful vote. Lee, of course, voted against. So what I think I'm trying to say is yesterday the halls of Congress were grim because there was a palpable energy. We're going to go to war. We're going to do something. Ha ha ha. But then I saw the Senate floor, not the House floor right after the vote, and there was a lot of men's club look to the Republican side, a little more diverse on the Democratic side, but there was a mixed energy. Nobody was saying like, yeah, we can go to war happy, and nobody was saying like, yeah, we have an anti-war vote and we managed to stop it. It is a fertile time for activists on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, very well said. And there's a lot of ambivalence right across the board.
So if you're principled, and you know what your principles are, and there's a principled vote to be cast, it's a very good time to call your congressman and senator.
Right, and right now call your senator, because this vote
senator
is now migrating over to the Senate.
Yes, it is.
And in fact, we have a website, callcongress.org, which lists a few 800 numbers as well as the regular phone number for the Congressional switchboard, which is 202-225-3121. We'll be right back with Mimi Kennedy. Stick around.
Welcome to the Million Color Revolution.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Mimi Kennedy is with us, the actress, actor, activist, writer, board chair of Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org, star of the hit series Mom on CBS. And Mimi, so glad to have you in the studio with us. It is great. We were talking just a minute ago about how the war vote happened in the House of Representatives. You were down there yesterday.
Yes, I was. Yeah,
And
I was down there for the Progressive Democrats of America's monthly roundtable. It was supposed to be about labor.
Right.
It became about war and peace. Jim McGovern dropped in before he voted against this authorization for special training for troops in Syria and armaments. And he said it's good to know that people have my back. The ultimate vote was an amazing mix of populist Republicans sounding like progressive Democrats, and some regular Democrats. There were other Democrats that wanted to give the president what he had asked for because he's their president.
Well, and also this expires in December. So it's just
Indeed.
really, let's get us past the election. So you probably had some Democrats who were just, I mean, as a member of Congress, you have two obligations. You have to represent your district first and foremost, even if they disagree with you. And then you also have to do what's best for the country,
That's right.
even if it disagrees with your district. And so, like Keith Ellison, he probably represented a district where they were like, hey,
I think
kick
so.
their butts.
I think so. Exactly right on that vote. Well, Jim McGovern did say, remembering Vietnam, he said, this may be the only chance we get to vote on this war. And Alan Grayson was saying this may end up to be a very insignificant vote, just as you say, something with a time limit. In December, people will forget that it ever happened. That's the kind of tipping point we're at in history right now in these last 2 years of the Obama administration.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating time. Progressive Democrats of America, Tim Carpenter used to come on all the time.
I know.
Talk about PDA. We loved Tim here, and we're so glad that you can come on. What is PDA up to? And pdamerica.org. If you're not a member, call or go to their website now and join. You start a local chapter. This is one of the best on the ground across the country. Progressive. It's not affiliated with the Democratic Party. It's all about taking over the Democratic Party and influencing the Democratic Party and pushing the Democratic Party to become this is the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, to paraphrase Howard Dean.
The Howard Dean.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Tim used to say, we're not the Democratic Party. We're what we want the Democratic Party to be.
Right. We're the insurgency inside the Democratic
insurgency
Party.
inside.
And so what's PDA up to? You had a roundtable. A lot of people don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And so
Tim Carpenter, our founder, got this together. He made so many friends in Congress who were so excited to have a principled person coming and talking their ear off. We have 6 congressional board members, and one of them got us a room every month in the Cannon Building. And we meet with other progressive groups in coalition. We've had the National Nurses United. We've had too many to name. We've had Food and Water Watch, environmental, labor, anti-war, and certainly the peace movement, all there to talk to congressional members and staff. And we share education. Us from the grassroots, here's what the grassroots are really going to be mobilizing about in the streets, and them saying, here's the legislation. We'd like to propose this. How does this? So, we the people get into the room and counterbalance what they see day in and day out from paid lobbyists who are making 3 figures a year to talk their ear off about what their corporation wants or what their consulting firm wants.
you mean 6 figures a year?
Yeah, I did mean. Yeah, they're not making.
It's amazing. When Ronald Reagan came into this town, there were like 400 registered lobbyists. Now there's like 37,000, and starting pay is 135,000 a year, and that's like basically for an intern. I mean,
It's unbelievable.
This city is so awash in cash.
So awash in cash. I do notice that. You walk the streets and people are living very well.
Oh yeah, and you can't get a decent meal in a decent restaurant for under $200,
No, you
and you
can't.
got to have a reservation.
That's exactly right.
It's like I've never. It's the bubble. It's the people.
It's the bubble, and you can get very puffed up here, treating yourself very well. I sometimes call it Country Club America, with the White House as the clubhouse, which is why people who think like that are so mad when they don't have the presidency, because that's the main place.
Yeah.
For the fun and the power. And I don't mean to make it into diminutives, but there is a source of pride in all that. I'm from show business, don't I know? The same thing happens in Hollywood.
Well,
And
they say Washington D.C. is show business for ugly people.
I know
Right?
they
I
used
mean,
to
it's-
say that, but they're very attractive here.
with a few exceptions.
with a few exceptions. But anyway, I did notice that John Boehner couldn't be bothered to gavel the vote on War and Peace.
Really?
I walked in there. It wasn't Boehner at the lectern, and I said, "Where's Mr. Boehner?"
Must have been happy
He wasn't
hour.
here. Maybe. But I said, he can't be bothered. And maybe he said he's probably in his office. And I went, well, why isn't he? This is an important vote. They're sending young men to war.
But he's got
The
a wet
speaker
bar in
can't
his
be-
office, and he smokes in his office. So
So
it's-
he's in his office, they
Yeah.
said. And the guy next to me went, well, no, an hour ago, I saw him taking pictures in the hall with a visiting group. So he was receiving visitors, but he couldn't gavel the vote about the war. What?
What's we have a little less than a minute. What are you hearing about what's going to happen when this hits the Senate?
I have not heard very much. It's really come up by surprise. So my speculation would be there's maybe enough pro-military industrial votes in the Senate to put it over.
But
I
it
don't
would take,
know.
if it's close.
Yeah,
If
if it's-
one Democrat
right.
decided to filibuster it,
To filibuster it.
yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
I haven't. Have you heard that about the filibuster?
I have
I've
not.
been
No,
in
I'm,
this bubble, and I
I'm
haven't.
just purely speculating. We're going to have Senator Sanders on for an hour
Maybe
tomorrow.
we'll have a
find
caller.
out.
A
There you
caller
go.
could call in?
Yeah, and in fact, if you would like to call in, Mimi and I are going to take calls now. So if you'd like to talk to Mimi Kennedy with Progressive Democrats of America, give us a shout right now. 866-987-TOM.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987.
Welcome back. 28 minutes before the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you, and I would say it's your opportunity to talk to a famous TV actor and a star of screen, stage, and movie. But really, that's you have an impressive and important career. But your activism work blows me away. I mean, the fact that you have been with PDA through all this, the stuff that you've been doing, and now taking on this responsibility with Progressive Democrats of America, Mimi Kennedy. It's such an honor and a pleasure to have you with us. And pdamerica.org, the website. Shall we take some phone calls?
I think that would be fun. I listen
Okay.
to you on the radio, do it all the time.
Let's
and
do
it's
it.
great to be here, watch you do it.
Charles in Opelika, Florida. You're on the air with me and Mimi.
Hi, hi, Mimi. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to hear your voice.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, I'm excited, but the thing is, I do have a question for you. What happens if, just in case, the Republicans win the Senate, and I guess they might try to impeach the president, but the most important thing is, what happens if they decide to shut the government down again? Does the Democrats actually come out with town hall meetings, which we didn't have, which the Republicans came out effectively with the Affordable Care Act, with the Obamacare, and they made such a stink, and it seemed like we missed a valuable, we missed that time and when they shut the government down. What about our constituents? What about the people that was affected so much by the government shutting down that need,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's get Mimi's thoughts on this, Charles. Excellent point. Thank you.
Yeah, Charles, my first thought always is, being of an organization that organizes town halls, every time that we would have one, we had to raise money from activists in order to get $600 worth of plane tickets for a couple of people. We had to rent a venue. That would be another $800 to $1,000. It costs money for the activists to do that. So the Democratic Party should be doing it. So where's their, $4,000? Where's their budget of $20,000 to do a bunch of town halls everywhere? I'll tell you where it is. It's in their campaigns, because we're not funded the way the right wing funded their anti-Obamacare message. That Koch brothers money, that billionaires money that you hear about, sometimes it pays for plane tickets and buses and town venues. I know this intimately because I'm somebody who has to raise the budget. That's one. Now, I don't want to blame it all on money, but it is very, especially since the Democratic Party has some money, and they should be putting it into town halls and things that regular people can come to.
Oh, this whole Tea Party thing was that. I mean,
the Tea Party was funded.
I went to 2 Tea Party meetings down here on the mall.
Yeah.
And in both cases, there were these buses showing up that were painted.
Yeah.
I mean, not just a bus that was rented.
Yeah.
Painted. That's a $300,000 paint job on this thing.
That is a $300,000 paint job on the bus. There's people that are told that they can take the day off if they go to that thing, whereas Democrats are scrambling for child care and figuring out how they they can get there. I have seen a vast difference. The income inequality in this country also exists in terms of organizing. But Charles, that's such a good idea that we're going to try to do it anyway. And if they do shut the government down, yes, there should be town halls on here's how this happened and here's who to blame it on. It's not just Congress. We hate them all, throw them all out. No, we can name names. It's specific strategies from specific Congress leaders and Senate leaders and GOP leaders. But they are funded to have their populist town halls look like organizing. Yeah. And it's not the same organizing we do, because while we organize, we have to fundraise and scrape together from, people who can't really afford it. $25, $50, $500 from those who can't afford it.
Yeah, that's got to be the toughest work of PD America. It's just keeping the thing going. Dave in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You're on the air with Mimi Kennedy and me.
Hello, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
And Mimi, it's a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you.
Thank you.
You're talking about whether or not we should go to war again or still. And I think we need to ask, why do we go to war nowadays? Not just why are we going to this war?
Yeah.
Because it seems clear to me that the only reason we go to war anymore is to make money for certain corporations and certain individuals.
Yeah.
And when you see it that way, it becomes obvious. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Why did we go to Iraq? Why did we go to Afghanistan? But if you realize that the reason we went there was to make money, suddenly it makes sense. They made a lot of money.
Amy?
I keep thinking all the way back to Marco Polo and the Silk Road. Trade routes. Who controls trade? If you're a nation state, you want to be in the government because you get the benefits of the trade. And of controlling the economy. And I think you're absolutely right, although we might have once said it's for oil, literally the oil that's under the ground of the geopolitical place that we're trying to get a government to control that's friendly. At this point, we can see in our own case, who needs a government when you've got mega corporations that can do what they want? That's what the Trans-Pacific Partnership is all about. They would be corporations can sue nation states for passing laws that protect the people environmentally, but the corporation doesn't want those laws because it affects their profits. That would be okay under the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So when I think of the world map, I realize, we're kind of in a trade war about controlling the means of production. There's a lot of old language that you could apply to this, but fighting neck and neck is the idea of human rights, human dignity, and a global brother and sisterhood of man and womankind. And that's really kind of what's going on. I think you're absolutely right. But what I would used to say was a war for oil, I would now say is a war to control trade, safe trade, trade routes. And it's an arms race. Every time you think, well, we'll fly things everywhere, and then somebody has a shoulder-launched, bring down the airplane missile. Okay, then we're going to have that's why I think Russia wanted Crimea. They wanted that shoreline.
Yeah. Well, that's where their Navy is based.
Yeah, so exactly. And they needed to have that shoreline for every reason.
Yeah, it's an amazing
yes.
thing.
Short answer, yes.
Okay. Frank in Buffalo, New York. You're on the air with Mimi Kennedy and me.
Thanks, Tom. You and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I love your show because you give such a reasoned approach, and it's well thought out.
Thank you.
I got to disagree with that prior caller. I can't see the Iraq War cost us trillions of dollars, 7,000 people since 9/11. I mean, to me, the reason is this emotionalism that you'll see now with this ISIL thing was not really stoked up until they started using YouTube in these beheadings.
Yep.
And,
and Boko Haram is actually larger, more powerful, and more destructive, and we're doing nothing about them because they're not doing videos.
Right. Tom, they are the JV, these guys. Just like the 9/11 guys were the JV.
Yeah.
And there was a thought at the time that we should look at this as a criminal action.
Yep.
And those guys were laughed at. And you look back at it now, those guys were right. And that's how we don't need to go to war with these guys. They're way undersupplied, overextended. We could take them out. But who's going to wind up the benefit of that? Bashar Assad in Iran. And people get all stoked up emotionally that the president has to man up and do this. And they're not even thinking straight about this stuff, And that's what bothers me the most is that the lack of critical thought in this country, and that these guys can be elevated to these brave warriors because they cut off heads and put it on YouTube, or they managed to, as horrible as it was, to crash 3 planes, 4, on 9/11. And since then, how much homeland terrorism has there been?
Yeah, we have spent a fortune. Frank, let's get Mimi's thoughts on this.
Well said, Frank. Really articulate. That is the other piece that is fueling. When you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. And I have often thought about the many displaced people in Asia and the Middle East that we've bombed. The bombing, not just we, but all that violence has created a massive amount of refugees and displaced people. And maybe a 5-year-old kid is now grown up to be 14, 15, 18 over this time of war. And what do they got? They've got their religion. They have a sense that their family needs some sort of vengeance, and it's going to be very attractive to then become a fighter and just lose your life for your God because God is on your side. And I'm not denigrating that feeling, although it's so dangerous for us, but we have had it on our side too. So I agree with you. It's not entirely money. It's not. There's also a human feeling that causes people to want to go to war. But when you look at Congress in their fine suits and their marble halls, just with a sweep of the hand, let's have more war. That's when my heart breaks.
Yeah, me too. And this, I shouldn't ask you to read bin Laden's words, but this is Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
The week of the John Kerry, George Bush election, he released a video, as you'll recall. And he said, "We are continuing our policy of bleeding America to the point of bankruptcy, Allah willing. We, alongside the Mujahideen, bled Russia for 10 years until it went bankrupt and was forced to withdraw in defeat. All we have to do is send 2 Mujahideen to the farthest point, or east, to raise a piece of cloth on which is written Al-Qaeda in order to make generals race there to cause America to suffer human, economic, and political losses without their achieving anything of note other than some benefits for their private corporations." He says, "Every dollar of Al-Qaeda defeated $1 million by the permission of Allah, besides the loss of a huge number of jobs. As for the economic deficit, it has reached record astronomical numbers, estimated to more than a total of more than $1 trillion." And then he nails it. He says, "It is true that this shows that Al-Qaeda has gained. But on the other hand, it shows that the Bush administration has also gained, something that anyone who looks at the size of the contracts acquired by the shady Bush administration-linked mega corporations like Halliburton and its kind will be convinced. It all shows that the real loser is you. It is the American people and your economy." This is Osama bin Laden. We are doing exactly what these guys want. ISIS is playing the exact same playbook that bin Laden did. We're going to send 2 fighters to a distant, well, in this case, we're going to behead 2 guys.
Yeah. Let's defy them. Let's resist them. Let's not do this.
Really. And let's stop listening to John McCain and Lindsey Graham, who are saying, thank God for the Saudis because they're arming the people who became ISIS. I mean, it's nuts. Anyhow, we'll be back with Mimi Kennedy. Pardon my going off on a rant there. We'll be back with Mimi Kennedy, Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org, right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And check out pdamerica.org, as in Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann and Mimi Kennedy with you. And Kim, watching Free Speech TV on the Dish Satellite TV network in Mooresville, Indiana. You are on the air with Mimi Kennedy. Hey. Kim?
Hi. It's so nice to talk to both of you.
Thank you.
I need your help. I'm very active in local politics. I fell in love with Hoosier, and I now live in a deep red state. I'm running for local office for town council. And I'm encountering a lot of Republicans. I'm in a unique position. I have an unpopular Republican opponent.
Okay.
What I would like for you guys to I get a lot of, well, how do you feel about Obamacare? How do you feel about, gun control? Mm-hmm. All that kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering if you guys could just give me some quick, polite rebuttal to these arguments.
Obamacare is good for families, and abortion has nothing to do with it. So if your concern is about children and children to come, then Obamacare is probably something you want because it helps mothers and children much more than you can't use federal dollars for abortion, period. Second, I would say on the guns, Dennis Kucinich used to say, I'm not going to take away your guns.
Right.
That's all he would say.
Yeah. Bernie Sanders, Kim, does a brilliant job on this. He's on here every Friday for an hour taking calls and has been doing that for 9 years. And hundreds of times people have called and asked Bernie questions about abortion, about these wedge issues that the Republicans come up with. And Bernie will say, well, a lot of people care about that, but the real issue is the fact that the middle class is dying. The real, and he always takes it back to economics because economics is really at the base of everything. And these wedge issues that the Republicans keep coming up with, things like gun control, they're there so that we won't talk about their economic policies. So I would strongly recommend moving along to those. Does that make sense to you, Mimi? Thanks, Kim, for the call. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, Kim. Yeah, I drove through upstate New York once, and I heard a nun. I was educated by nuns on the radio for 3 hours talking about the evils of Obamacare only because of abortion. This woman sounded like she was about 90, and I guarantee you she doesn't know the science probably behind any kind of reproduction.
Well, and she didn't know the legal,
No, but
the
she
Hyde Amendment.
She was telling everybody you have to vote against all Democrats and against Obamacare. So that is out there, but it is neither scientifically damaging. The real scientifically damaging thing to families and children and mothers is not having health care.
Yeah, a.k.a. the Republican Party. Mary in Spokane, Washington. We have just a minute to the break. You have a quick question for Mimi?
I really liked how she brought up the human feeling of things when it comes to war. Because not many people even realized that Madame Albright, just before the Twin Towers, had made a speech that I think it was like 50,000 Iraqi children could die before the United States will lift a finger.
Right.
And just after that all hell broke loose. In the
she was talking about sanctions. Wasn't
she? Yeah, and that right after that all hell broke loose, and Madeleine Albright disappeared to Florida to deal with she retired and went to Florida and then dealt with the young boy down there that was wanting to stay in America,
Elio,
taken back to his home country. Yeah.
You're saying, how do we know that our words don't go around the world? Of course they do. Things that Americans say flippantly like that. She said the price was worth it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Mary, thank you for the call. We'll be back with Mimi Kennedy, the board chair of Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org, right after this sticker. Ten minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Talk media for the rest of us. Mimi Kennedy is with us, the actor. Her new show, or the show that she's part of, Mom, on CBS. But more important in my mind, board chair of Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org. And Bob in Arlington, Washington. You have a question for Mimi?
Yes. And some of the things that I've encountered in my life shows me that far too much of our labor policy and how we do things is dictated by the insurance companies and insurance policy rather than actual safety practices or, how much of our economy has been squelched because of the insurance policy, and what can we do about it?
I'm the daughter of a lawyer, and I have always said liability, liability, liability. Yeah. Just like follow the money, follow the liability. And he's right. You will see a core of our legislation in almost any area you choose to look at, including labor. And what the corporations fled America during the Reagan era, partly because they didn't want the environmental liability that they could see coming, and partly because they didn't want to be responsible for liability for harming workers. They wanted workers who were just going to shut up. Right. Liability, as much as cheap labor, is what made corporations, is what killed the American economy. And it was so selfish and so venal that it should have been called out when it happened, but it wasn't. And I appreciate your observation, because it is, I would just say, start to practice that. Look at liability, liability, liability.
But the
and
flip
see.
side of that is you get Republicans like down in Texas where they say, well, okay, these doctors are being put out of business by the
liability insurance.
Liability insurance having to do with malpractice.
Yeah.
So we're going to cap it at $250,000. No matter what kind of damage they do to you, you get $250,000.
Yeah.
They did that. It really hurt a lot of people, and it didn't reduce the liability insurance
Well, these
policies.
are the guys who don't want regulation. And then what do they
Right.
do? They regulate that if you're hurt, you can't get the amount of money it takes you to stay alive with 24/7 nursing
Right.
care.
So
wrong solution.
Right, yeah.
there.
So maybe more than insurance reform, we need regulatory reform.
I think we need regulatory reform. Absolutely. And I think that we need to have it global. I mean, that's ideally, you don't go places and harm people or the environment. It's going to come back to us. Right. Live with our regulations, please.
There you go. George in Chicago, listening on WCPT. You're on the air with Mimi Kennedy.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I would like to make this point in regards to the earlier caller who brought up the subject of town meetings. We do have a critical imbalance in funding between the right and the rest of us same normal people over here. And we've got to maximize the advantages we do have. Mm-hmm. And one of those is the voice of the man who commands the biggest microphone and the biggest pulpit in the country, and that's the president. And I have been endlessly frustrated with him as a fellow Chicagoan and South Sider that he is so unwilling to engage, so unwilling to fight hard battles. You've made the suggestion, Tom, that he should sit in a room and watch and listen to the speeches of Roosevelt and Truman and channel them and come out with the fighting attitude they had.
Yeah. But that's, it's not going to happen. I think we have the president we have, George. Do you want to just complain about him, or did you have a specific suggestion or question?
I say that leaders have to lead, and if you want to inspire people to go to meetings and come to the polls, you've got to engage the Republicans, and when they're screwing with you, you have to fight back.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, I'm with you. Yeah, Mimi, you want to expand on that?
I just agree. Well said. And, Obama doesn't fight back because he wants to be the president of all of us, because we had 8 years of an extremely partisan president who wasn't the president of all of us at all, and everybody saw it. So I think Obama's idea was, I really will be, and therefore I'm not going to fight back. But that was, I think, a really awful decision, and it left the country disheartened. I was disheartened. It's been very difficult, an uphill struggle for activists, because we have a president of the Democratic Party who doesn't represent what we know. I think he would like to represent. Yeah. I think he would. I just saw a play about his mother, Obama Mama, Stanley Ann Dunham. She was a hippie and a global human rights in her heart. I don't know enough. I haven't seen the whole play, just 3 scenes. But no question, he was raised by somebody who had very big ideas about global human rights. But, he's president of corporate America right now, or thinks he is.
It's a tough one, yeah. James, we have 2 minutes to the end of the hour. James in Spring City, Tennessee, you're on the air.
Yes. Is it my imagination, or is it, if you do a little homework, you notice a lot of the Republican-controlled states have gerrymandered in the past 4 years?
Oh, yeah. Everybody everywhere. So is your question, what do we do about gerrymandering?
Yeah, I guess so. And maybe those that voting Republican might think twice about why they're voting Republican this year.
Great plan.
Yeah.
James, thanks for the call. Mimi, we have a minute and a half here.
Great plan. Well, speaking of voting, what I have been saying is, as a wife of a teacher, it's occurred to me many people feel that voting is a test. They don't have all the answers. They would rather avoid the test, just as they might have in school. This year, first, do no harm. It's a great idea if you're facing a ballot and you don't want to harm by voting for somebody wrong just because you like their name. But you will harm if you don't vote in the federal races in November. Everybody who's ever voted has to vote in November for those federal races. Think twice if you think the Republicans are on your side. If you're a working person, you're not a billionaire, you should be pulling the lever for the Democrat in those federal races, or we're going to see impeachment, our money squandered on investigations, not showing up to gavel. We're going to see all that stuff that makes us hate the government, and we need our government. We should love our government because it's us, self-government. We need to use it. So first step, November, vote. and look at those Democrats. Find out about them in your
and
area.
look at the local races, too. I mean, the Koch brothers are now
yeah.
funding state-level stuff. They're even funding, like, local judges and things.
Absolutely they are, and they can easily take over those little small places if you're not looking, and they're mostly doing it in the GOP, safe to say. So what I'm saying about the federal goes with the down ballot, too.
Yeah, get involved. Show up.
Yeah.
Which you've been doing all your life, and we're so pleased that you're here with Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org. Mimi Kennedy, the board chair. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Tom. What a privilege it is to be on your show.
And don't forget, Mimi's. You can watch Mimi on TV on CBS on Mom. When is that?
Yeah, it'll be on Monday nights, I think.
Monday nights.
Coming up
How
soon.
cool is that? There you go. Okay. Thanks, Mimi.